The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hey everyone, this is Rose Daly, the City Sustainability Coordinator of Sun Prairie, and you're listening to the Sustainable Sun Prairie Podcast, the show that aspires to educate, empower, and engage our listeners in all aspects of sustainability. Whether you are a seasoned sustainability enthusiast or just beginning your sustainability journey, each episode will have something new and exciting for everyone. Let's begin the conversation for a greener community. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into one of the biggest game changers in home heating and cooling, heat pumps. You've probably heard the buzz that they're ultra efficient, all electric, and maybe even the future of home comfort. But you've probably also heard the doubts. They don't work in cold climates, they cost too much, and they're too complicated. So what's the truth? In this episode, we'll break down exactly how heat pumps work, separate myth from fact, and share practical step-by-step tips for anyone thinking about swapping out their old HVAC system. Today I'm excited to welcome Stephen Cavill, who is extremely knowledgeable on heat pumps because of his work in home energy contracting and is a heat pump owner himself. Welcome, Stephen. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Rose. Happy to be here.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Stephen Cavill. I own and operate Madison Home Performance, and we do HVAC design and home diagnostics in and around southern Wisconsin. And I am a heat pump owner. I have an all-electric house on the southeast side of Madison. We did that in, 2021, and we've been rocking since then and continue to move forward with electrification projects.
Awesome. So I think we should start with some foundational knowledge to make sure everyone's on the same page. Can you share what the role of a home HVAC system is?
Sure. I think it's really important for homeowners to know that the most basic function of any house is to separate the inside from the outside. So a house is an environmental separator. Its job is to keep the outside out and the inside in. So it controls temperature and humidity. If it's 30 degrees outside and 40% relative humidity, obviously inside we don't want that. We want it to be 70 degrees and 50% relative humidity. So the container separates inside from the outside, and then the second main part of the house is the HVAC system. This is also called the engines of the house. This is also called the mechanicals. Its job is to manipulate the pool of air that you are living in. It does this by heating, by cooling, by humidifying, and by dehumidifying. So those four functions of it help it to condition the air or that pool of air that you are living in. But again, the two main parts are the shell, which is the container, and then the mechanicals, which is the HVAC system.
Can you share what are the most common types of HVAC systems that maybe our listeners would find in their homes?
70% of people in Wisconsin are heating and cooling their houses with natural gas, which is called methane. There are other fuels that people use like propane or wood or electricity, but those are in the minority. Most people also heat and cool their houses with what's called a forced air system. This means that in their basement they have a metal box that's got a big fan in it, and that fan blows air through ductwork to heat and cool the house. But methane, which is natural gas, is the most common system that's going to be in most people's houses, or that's the fuel.
Okay. And do most homes have electric AC systems then?
Correct. So the heating system is fueled by natural gas, also called methane, and the AC, or their heat pump, runs on electricity. Natural gas is going to come to your house if you're in a city through little pipes in the ground, and you're going to pay like a service fee per month just to have that hookup, in addition to the actual therms that you're using for your appliance. But all the cooling is going to happen through the use of electricity. The heating is going to happen through the use of gas.
Okay, gotcha.
For the majority of the listeners here.
Okay, so two fuel sources to provide heating and cooling to homes is the norm right now. But I'm aware that heat pumps are becoming more of a mainstream technology for both the commercial and residential sector. for heating and cooling needs. And I think what's really unique about heat pumps is they're fully electric. So they can provide heating and cooling from that one fuel source. And what I also like about moving to electrification is if you are focusing on outfitting your home with renewable sources such as solar panels, you could hypothetically power your HVAC system using solar panels or other renewable energy sources. So I think it's a really cool technology. It's definitely becoming very popular. As an expert in this field, can you fill us in on how exactly heat pumps work?
So what's interesting about natural gas furnaces is that when you are utilizing a natural gas furnace in your house, you are literally creating heat. And you're creating heat by burning something. You're burning a gas. And that gas is burning downstairs in your basement inside that metal box at 3,650 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like super, super hot.
That's crazy.
And it's burning that hot to get your house to 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 72 or whatever your preferred temperature is. So first, I just want to highlight, like, what a juxtaposition to see that something's burning at 3,650 degrees Fahrenheit to heat your house to 70. That's like an incredible discrepancy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So a furnace is creating heat by burning something. We have a combustion reaction happening in our houses. Heat pumps are not burning anything. Heat pumps are moving something, and what they're moving is heat. So a heat pump uses electricity and electricity only to move heat from the outside inside. It's doing that in winter. And then in the summertime, it moves heat from the inside to the outside. We say it's pumping heat. Really what's happening is there's a closed circuit loop where a liquid is running in this continual loop, and it's getting pressurized and depressurized, and it's absorbing heat and it's releasing heat. So let me use an analogy. In the wintertime, there's a sponge outside. That sponge is absorbing heat like a sponge would absorb water. And then the cycle takes the sponge inside and it squeezes or wrings out all that heat so the heat gets dumped inside. Then the sponge moves back outside where it's nice and dry, and again it absorbs any heat from the outside and it comes back inside and it squeezes it out. And then in the summer it just reverses. So the image of a sponge and soaking up water and squeezing it out, the water is the heat and the sponge is the heat pump. That's what's happening. The heat pump is just moving heat. It's not creating heat.
Okay. And by moving existing heat rather than generating your own heat, it becomes a much more efficient process.
Yes, that's the coolest thing. The amount of energy in the heat is more than the energy that it costs to run the circuitry to move the heat. So heat pumps can be up to like 400% efficient. So a traditional electric baseboard heat, electric resistance heat, is 100% efficient. Heat pumps are more than that because, again, the energy it costs to run that circuit is less than the energy contained in the thing that they are moving.
I think what's really interesting is people are kind of explaining heat pumps as if they're this new technology, like, the new hot technology, no pun intended. But in reality, heat pumps have been around, I think, since at least the 1950s. Our refrigerators are a type of heat pump, right? Because they're keeping a very cold interior space and they're pushing heat out into the rest of the house. And also, in a very simple way of looking at this, would you say heat pumps are essentially air conditioners with an extra valve to reverse the flow?
Yeah. Just think of a heat pump as an AC with a reversing valve, or a two-way AC. So, people, there's no reason to buy an AC anymore because just with this one extra part, an AC can transform itself into a heat pump. So that's a very simple way to put it. And a heat pump is a two-way AC.
Okay, so these are not complex systems at all. They've been around for a while. Okay, they're just becoming more popular.
Correct.
All right. Well, in addition to them becoming more popular, I've also noticed there's a lot of misinformation going around right now about heat pumps. A lot of myths or just, spreading false information. So I thought you and I could dive into those myths and you can help us to debunk them. So the first biggest myth I'm aware of is, and we've kind of already talked about this, but myth number one is heat pumps are only for heating.
Yeah, so that's that's not true. I guess I could understand why someone would think that because the word heat is in the word heat pump. I guess we could say heat pump and cool pump, but I've never heard of a cool pump. Heat pumps, again, what a heat pump does is it moves heat, and it can move heat from outside to inside. That would be bringing heat into the house for heating in the wintertime, or it can reverse the refrigeration cycle, and it can move heat from the inside to the outside. To be honest, there's no such thing as cooling. There's only removing heat. So when we say like an AC brings cooling, all it's doing is it's absorbing heat on the inside, and then it's ejecting it to the outside in a system called the condenser. But heat pumps can move heat both ways, so they heat and they cool. And I put cool in quotes because cooling is really removing heat.
Okay, awesome. So again, one system that you can use to replace both your furnace and that electric AC system.
Correct. And the system would actually look the same. You'd still have like the indoor unit or the indoor box down in your basement for the majority of our listeners. And you'd also have the unit outside that sits out in the backyard. And one thing I'll just mention about this is I have a heat pump. Obviously, my heat pump is so quiet. My neighbor, when his AC kicks on, it goes, and then you hear it running like in the middle of summer afternoon. I have a big fan on my heat pump on the unit outside called the condenser, and when it runs, it sounds like like you can barely even hear the thing running. So it's just kind of nice. It helps me to enjoy my backyard more.
That's anyway. So nice. I just feel like the sound of an AC unit kicking on has become just such a normal summer sound. Like the bees are buzzing, and then you hear the AC kick on. You're like, yep, it's a nice summer day.
Yeah, I know.
Stephen, you and I both live in Wisconsin. We have very cold winters here. And there's a myth going around that heat pumps don't work in cold climates. But they're like such a cool technology. Are they only for the South? Are they only for warm areas? Or can we have heat pumps here too?
Oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this. I'll begin answering this question by just talking about some of my personal experience. Obviously, I have a business called Madison Home Performance, and we do diagnostic testing and HVAC design. And I got into this business by buying a house back in like 2020, pre-COVID. And I was initially really interested in saving money and having my house be as efficient as possible because I wanted to have low utility bills. It was selfish. I was just looking out for me, having low bills. The more money I saved, the less I had to earn, which means the more free time I could have. And I want to do what I want with my own life and control my time, control my destiny. So I spent, a year air sealing my house to the hilt and insulating the walls. My walls were empty. Insulating my attic, air sealing my attic, insulating my basement walls, doing all this building shell work, addressing the skin of the house like to the nth degree. I had no life. I was up in my attic for like 80 plus hours, air sealing and insulating and doing all this work, right? Just kind of going crazy. And after I did that, I was like, geez, I spent all this time and upgrading the shell. It's like, well, now I want to upgrade the HVAC, right? And I wanted to. I'd heard about these things called heat pumps. So I called around and I was asking people, contractors, and I was asking people who I trusted, and they're like, yeah, heat pumps work, but you're going to want a backup system. In other words, you can get a heat pump and it'll, heat and cool your house for the majority of the year. But when it gets like below 32 degrees or below 15, you're really going to want to have a gas furnace to kind of, so that you don't freeze in your house and, and like die, right?
And that almost defeats the purpose then. Why get a heat pump if you still need a gas furnace?
Yeah, I mean, you can still get what's called a dual fuel system where you have a heat pump and then you have the gas furnace take over when it gets really cold. But I had come so far in my journey to make my house all electric. I didn't want to compromise. I didn't want to, give in to fear and be like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just get the furnace just in case, right? But I was getting all this feedback that I need to have the gas furnace backup, and people were like, heat pumps by themselves don't work in Wisconsin. So I ended up installing a cold climate heat pump myself, and I had a friend of mine come and do the HVAC connections because I don't have my 608 license to handle refrigeration. And my house is now all electric. We ended up capping our gas line and removing our gas meter. And even in that process, when I had MG&E come out and lock the gas meter, they're like, we're not going to remove the gas meter yet, just in case you change your mind and you want the gas back on and blah, blah, blah. So that was in November. Then I had to come back out in February. I'm like, I'm done. I'm off. We made it through the winter.
So maybe they even had doubts as the utility.
Everyone had doubts.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't I couldn't call Grandma, be like, hey, Grandma Cavill, how's it going? Just with nobody was doing this. Like there's not like a forum or like a restaurant where you go to and talk about your heat pump. Like the whole general knowledge of the population is that, first of all, no one knows anything about heat pumps, and no one thinks that they work by themselves. People think that they're only for the South. Well, the technology has improved. We have cold climate heat pumps now that heat down to like negative 22 or whatever. But I didn't have anyone I could call, so I took the risk after doing load calculations, which we'll talk about later, to basically do the math to prove that this will work. I took the dive, we did it, and we are not turning back. Every house that I live in for the rest of my life will, if not already all electric, will be all electric. We will have no gas in my house, period. I'm in for the long haul, done.
I love that. You're leading the way.
I just got educated, and then I trusted math and went forward.
So tell us about performance in the dead of winter.
Okay.
How did it work out?
So here's what you need to know. Let's just go back to what most of our listeners have. Most of our listeners have a gas furnace that runs on methane, which is natural gas, right? Whether it's negative 70 outside or 30 degrees Fahrenheit, when you burn natural gas, gas burns at 3,650 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't matter the outdoor conditions, okay? So we can always rely on that source to keep our houses warm. Heat pumps are different. Heat pumps do not burn anything, and as such, they do not create heat. Heat pumps move heat. When it gets colder outside, there is less available heat outside to move to the inside. As such, heat pumps lose efficiency as it gets colder. So, at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, my heat pump in my house can produce 24 units of heat, or I should say, it can move 24 units of heat from outside to inside. The technical term for a unit of heat is a BTU, but let's just call it units of heat. At negative 22, my heat pump can only move 17 units of heat. This illustrates the idea that as the air gets colder outside, there's less heat in it, so the heat pump is less efficient. It can move less heat inside. So if my house needs 20 units of heat at negative 22, but my heat pump can only move in 17, I'm deficient by 3 units of heat. So I'm going to need some sort of systems to supplement my heat pump at those temperatures.
So when you say your home needs 20 units of heat and maybe on that cold day the heat pump is moving 17 units of heat, what do those 3 missing units of heat equate to in terms of temperature of your house?
That's a great question, and there's so many factors in that question that it's hard for me to answer, because is the house, full of 20 people who are all, emitting heat into the space? Are you baking cookies? Are you, running the sourdough factory downstairs? Are you having a dance party? Is this house, 1,000 square feet, or is it 5,000 square feet? Like, how much surface area is facing? How much surface area of exterior walls do you have? There's just so many variables that make that very difficult. What I can say is most of the year, like 99% of the year, my heat pump can cover the load of my house. And the other times, my house has people in it, and it has thermal mass, and I can, put on a sweater, and it's like a non-issue. Mm-hmm. Like, I was so scared ahead of this, but it's a non-issue.
Yeah. So let's talk about that negative 22 degrees where maybe your heat pump can't provide all the heat you need in your house. Is there anything you can add to the system to provide extra heat in those situations?
Yes, I'm going to say 2 things about this. First, when we design or when we choose a heat pump for a house or a furnace for a house, we do not design for the extreme outlier when it's negative 70 in your house. We design for what's called the design temperature, and the design temperature in Madison is negative 3. So what we're saying is that 99% of the year, all but 87.6 hours of the year, it is negative 3 degrees or warmer. And when we go and we choose what size system that we're putting in our house, we look at the negative 3 and warmer, and we size off of that 99% day. We do not size for the outlier days. So when people come up to you and say, oh, geez, I shouldn't get this heat pump because one time back in 1940, it was negative 100 for 70 days. Like that is like those are outlier situations that we are not considering when we size HVAC equipment. That is not best practice. That's not how anything is done. We size for the 99% day, and those temperatures come off 30 years of historic data from, the National Oceanic Scientific, these national governing bodies that publish all this information that we use. So when we say it's negative 22 in Madison, it's not that for more than 87.6 hours of a year, and it's not that continuously. We hit 2 hours here from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. on a Tuesday, December 2nd. Then we hit it again on January 4th. Like, it just dips and then it goes back up. It dips and it goes back up. Now, what do we do when it gets colder than that? We get the heat pump, but then we have a supplemental heat source. That supplemental heat source could be a gas furnace. Then we'd have a dual fuel system, right? We'd have a heat pump system with a gas furnace backup. Or we could have a heat pump with electric resistance backup. This is what I have in my house. So I literally have these little toaster elements that stick into my heat pump that if we were ever in a situation where my heat pump could not keep up, the toaster element would kick on, and it would supplement or add to the heat that my heat pump is already moving to the inside. My heat pump never stops running. It always runs. But if I ever need a little boost at super cold temperatures, the electric resistance strips kick on to supplement what my heat pump is already doing.
Okay, so there is a solution there then for those 87 hours.
Yes, and people freak out because people are like, wait a minute. Stephen just said electric resistance. And what I know is electric resistance heat is very expensive. Folks, I've had my heat pump for 3 or 4 years. I've had electric resistance kick on once.
Wow.
One time. And all my bills are up on my website under the About Us page. You can see everything there. And I keep my house between 68 and 72 in the winter.
Okay, so it sounds like
there you go.
A winning solution.
There you go.
All right, we have busted that myth. Let's move on to our third myth here. Now, this one is one I've heard probably most frequently, or second to the cold climate myth. And I think there's a lot of things and information that are maybe prompting people to believe this. Myth number 3 is heat pumps aren't affordable.
This is a big question. I installed my heat pump myself, and I did all new ductwork and stuff. And I think that this was pre-COVID. That cost me, I want to say, about $5,000 or $6,000. But I did it myself, right? Today, I think that we need to make a distinction. I guess I'll say a couple things about this. We need to make a distinction between if you go out and you get 4 bids for a heat pump. There's the price of the actual physical device that you're buying, the material. And there's the price of the labor. So you could ask for a price breakdown in your invoice for the labor versus the actual unit, and you could see how much the unit actually costs. I think something like 60 or 75% of the price that in a bid that you might get is actually the cost of the labor and their skills and their knowledge. It's not the actual unit, right? So that's the first thing I'll say. Second thing I'll say about this is we need to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. The majority of your listeners are going to have what's called a single stage furnace. In terms of quality, if my heat pump is like a Michelin star restaurant, your single stage furnace is like school lunch, okay? A single stage furnace has the lowest technology and the lowest level of features in it. So if your heat pump is going to have two things that are really unique to it. It's going to have a variable speed fan, which can ramp up and down, and it's going to have a modulating refrigerant valve. So it can vary the intensity of the heat, and it can vary the speed at which the fan blows. So let me use an analogy. In your car, when you go on a road trip with your partner, you guys get in the car, it's really cold. The first thing that you do, if you're in a gas car, an ICE, internal combustion engine car, you get in the car and you crank on the heat all the way over to the red, and then you crank the fan all the way on high. So you get that warm air blowing. But after about 20 minutes, you turn it from the red to somewhere between the red and the blue. So you turn down the intensity of the heat and you turn down the fan. A top-of-the-line heat pump can adjust the output temperature, it can turn down the intensity of the heat, and it can turn down the fan speed. Those two features are not present on most people's HVAC systems. Most people's HVAC systems are either on at 100% with the fan all the way blasted, or they're off, and the heat's either full go or it's completely off. So when you say that they're too expensive, you need to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. What features are on your existing furnace and what features are on your heat pump? And when you compare those two things, you're going to see it's not the same. So that might help. You can always take features off of a heat pump or add features onto a furnace that would bring the prices more close. But again, make sure that you're comparing two things that are similar if you're going to do that.
Okay, so with the heat pump then, if you are paying a bit more than you would have paid for that standard HVAC system, you're going to get what you pay for in that high quality system with the extra controls.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. So first of all, if you everything is moving toward electrification, all right? I wish I could be around when this happens and, along with space travel and all that, but I'm going to be long dead. But an electric house, when you do that and you cap that gas line, you're no longer going to have the $20 or $25 service fee that you pay every month to the utility just to have the gas. I was paying more in service fees for my natural gas than I was for therms of gas I actually use. So when I got rid of the gas, 25 times 12 is how much I was saving per year just not to have the gas. Also, 60% of your life, like 60 years or something, you spend in your own home between those six walls, okay? Something like 90% of your life you spend indoors. I'm a proponent of putting your money where you spend your time. I spend freely on shoes, glasses, my phone, which I touch 5,000 times a day, sunglasses that have like polarized UVA, UVB, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Given the amount of time I spend in my own home, this device it's the heart of my home. It is providing me clean air. It's filtering the air. It's providing me, heating and cooling and comfort. This is my sanctuary. I spend so much time here. This makes so much sense to me to put money where I put myself. I mean, I'd rather spend the money here than on a new boat that sits in a slip that I use 3 times a year. I just think that I've drank the Kool-Aid where I'm like, this is a no-brainer purchase. It's a no-brainer move, and it's responsible for so many things that I use 24/7, 365.
That makes perfect sense, yeah. And it's going to make your home so much more comfortable, healthy, etc.
And comfort, health, and enjoyment, all.
Awesome.
Most people don't have the experience of living in a house that has a variable speed modulating heat pump or furnace. They don't know what that feels like. When I bought my Chevy Bolt EV, I went and I rented the car from Hertz or something, or I don't know who, Hertz rental car, I don't know, Avis, whoever. I picked some rental place that had the car that I wanted, and I rented it for a week, and I drove it around Madison in the winter to be like, how does this feel? Where does this pinch? Where does this pull? What do I like about it? And most people don't have the experience of living in a home that has top-of-the-line HVAC equipment. Most people have become satisfied with, this room gets a little cold, or I always feel a draft over here, or, that's just how it is. And most people settle. And C.S. Lewis has this quote where he says most people have become they become complacent or they become happy with playing in mud puddles when they could have a holiday at the sea. Right, and it's just this idea that we become so used to like eating like a McDonald's cheeseburger that I don't know, what like a real steak tastes like, or it's just an analogy. I'm just so because people don't have that experience, they don't know what's actually possible. So I just think that plays into this. I mean, I was dealing with a client a couple weeks ago who had built this house for a couple $1 million. And he calls me and he goes, yeah, we just built this house. And he goes, I have 3 rooms in my house that are uninhabitable.
Oh, geez.
He goes, I can't in good conscience put someone in that room. It's 50 degrees there in the wintertime. Right?
Oh, no.
So what's the cost per square foot of that guy's house? Is it $500 a square foot? Is it $1,000 per square foot? What's the cost to maintain it, plus taxes and all this stuff? So essentially, let's say it's his $1 million house. $300,000 of that house is unusable. So what would you pay to get that right? Like, what would you pay to occupy those rooms and have full use of your house? If you have a part of your house that you never go in, you've shrunk your square footage, right? So now it's like you're living in an even smaller space. Anyway, I think that thought is worth something here.
I agree. So our 4th myth here is heat pumps don't actually save any money. So we talked about maybe why they're a bit more expensive up front, but once you get them installed, you get them going, you have them for multiple years. Is it true that they don't actually save you any money?
My first winter with my heat pump, I was freaked out. I was like, our electric bill is going to be $600. We have to mortgage our house, blah, 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 Like, I was just scared because people were saying, oh, it's going to stop working or it's going to be super expensive to heat in the wintertime. They were thinking that my heat pump was going to run on all those electric resistance coils like the whole winter, right, which is expensive. Well, I was scared, so we kept our heat the first month between like 68 and 66. I was like, because I was nervous, and I was like wearing a hat around in the house. I had like a coat on. I was like, I don't know, what's our first bill going to be? My first bill for my first winter for one month was $168. That's for the whole house. That's my water heater, all my lights, our electric range, our heat pump for the whole house. That's everything. So after that, I was like, oh, geez, I thought it was going to be like $600. It was $168. So then we're like, okay, whatever, we don't have to worry now. All my bills every month since we got our heat pump and before are posted up on my website. People can look at all that stuff. But I was scared. Now I'm not because I've seen what all my bills are. And again, I'm also saving the $25 a month for the gas that I'm not even using. So that comes back to me. But long story short, I don't pay more than $200 a month in the dead of winter. And I bet I have lower utility bills than 90% of people in southern Wisconsin. And we recently put solar on my house. I did that myself. And with that, I think my house is either going to be net zero or net positive. So my house will be producing as much energy as it uses, or it will produce more than it actually uses. So everything is essentially free now.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing your success story. So It sounds like home electrification, installing that clean energy system is the future.
That is 100%. Like, this is such a no-brainer. And also, I think something like 60 or 70% of electricity is lost in transmission to the source. So if you can self-generate, the way to go.
Awesome. And I will link your bills in the show notes so people can take a look for themselves.
Rock out. I think that my address is there too. Come on by, check out the hot place. Don't come up inside, but you can take some pictures. It looks like my house looks like an ordinary house, like everyone else's house, and you wouldn't even know by looking at it, except by the solar panels up on the roof.
Alrighty. Well, that will be in the show notes if you're interested. So, Stephen, we have officially busted the top 4 myths about heat pumps. So with that being said, I think now we need to help our listeners be prepared for when it's time for them to swap out their HVAC system. So I've read that actually 85% of HVAC replacements are driven by emergencies, as in it's Thanksgiving dinner, the HVAC system goes out. Wait, we have to start that.
Oh, why do we have to start over? It's funny. Want to know why this is funny? This is funny because this is true, and sometimes the truth is funny.
Okay.
This is funny.
So I'll continue. So it's Thanksgiving dinner. You have your 25 family members over. It is 15 degrees out, and then suddenly your HVAC system just dies. Worst time of the year to die. And then you're like, my whole family's here. I don't want them to get cold. Let's do an emergency replacement. Who's available on Thanksgiving? Please come out, replace my system. And then you just have to pay whatever they say you have to pay. You get whatever system they have in stock at that time. And that's how you end up replacing your HVAC system. How can we avoid this, Stephen? I feel like this is not a good way to be replacing your HVAC system.
You can't negotiate from a place of need.
No.
You can't negotiate when you don't have any other options. I think that the statistic is correct. The analogy that I use with clients is you've been married for 20 years. And, unfortunate things happen. You end up getting a divorce, or worse, your spouse dies. And on the same day or the next day after the divorce or the death, you have gotten engaged and married somebody else, right? If that happened, we would think that you're crazy. Like, obviously, after a traumatic incident like that, like a death or something, your emotions are in flux. You're not thinking clearly, and you are not in a state to make good decisions. We're like, take some time off, take a vacation, go be with your family, take some time off work, take 6 weeks, take 6 months, whatever. We are doing the opposite when it comes to HVAC replacements. People are waiting, they're putting it off, and then they're having a significant event like an HVAC failure, and then that same day or that next day, because I have a wife and kids and it's cold in my house and I need to protect my family and we're all going to freeze, I need to get someone in here today in an emergency to get me something, and I need it today. And they're going to grab whatever they can, and you're going to lock into a 20-year decision in a state of crisis, and you think that you're going to come out on top, or that you're going to hit one out of the park with that decision. Good luck. It's not going to happen, right? So you really want to pre-plan this. And just, I'll tell you what I did in my own home. I had done all that building shell work, right? And then I looked at my furnace. My furnace was 8 years old. It was a single-stage furnace that put out 80 units of heat. My house actually needs 21 units of heat, so my system was oversized by a factor of 4. And I was like, geez, this thing's only 8 years old, right? Do I really want to spend all the money? Yes, I do, and I did. I replaced a system that was working perfectly well after 8 years. I gave it to a family member, and I installed a cold climate heat pump. But I did that ahead of time, so you're better off finding out what equipment you want or need, buying it early, or talking to your preferred contractor, getting it lined up so that they have it in stock for when you need it. So what if you replace it 6 months, a year, 2 years early over the span of 20 years? It just doesn't matter. The benefit is going to come by getting the right piece of equipment that's rightly suited for your house. And if you replace it early, I don't know, maybe you're out $1,000 because you get a little more life in that thing. It's just a non-starter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so do your research, have one picked out, even shop for contractors, like you said, so you can have a plan for when it does fail. Hopefully you don't get to that point. Hopefully you replace it before it fails, but in case it does fail, you have a plan in place.
Correct, and this is what I would do. If I'm talking to someone who's interested in moving towards a cold climate heat pump, the very first thing I would have them do is I'd have them get, the word on the street is a home energy assessment. This is someone who comes into the house, who looks at the two parts of the house, the building shell and the HVAC, and they can give you an independent, a third-party view on what's wrong and what's going well and how to make the home healthier. And they can tell you if there's a low-hanging fruit that you can take care of in the building shell to make the shell better so that you can get smaller HVAC for your house. So that third-party view coming in is going to kind of give you a roadmap of things that you want to take care of before you spring for new HVAC equipment. In order to prepare, you want to do 3 things. You want to get a home energy assessment. This is where someone's going to come in who's a third party. They're going to tell you what's wrong with the building shell and what's wrong with the HVAC system, and they're going to recommend some upgrades. Any of the low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff that makes a big difference on the building shell, you want to take care of before you do the HVAC replacement.
Okay, so we're talking maybe like drafty window, missing panel of insulation, that sort of thing?
So typically we're talking air sealing and insulation up in unconditioned attics, in your basement rim joist, and on your basement foundation walls. Windows are one of the last places that I would be looking to do building shell upgrades. There's not the payback, and it's typically not what the issue is. They would also do a blower door test for you, and but these building shell upgrades are easy things that you can do. It's not sexy work, but the air sealing and insulation work on the building shell is critical because the shell is more important than the HVAC. In a fight between the HVAC and the shell wins. You need to take care of the shell first, all right? So doing the air sealing and the insulating that the home energy audit will identify, that's like eating your fruits and vegetables. It's like having good cardiovascular health. It's like having good blood work. If you go and you get new windows and you get new siding, that's like Botox, a spray tan, and new clothes. It looks great, right? But that's not indicative of the real health of the person, right? You need to do the stuff that people can't see. That's where the real payback is going to come in terms of comfort, energy savings, and a healthy home. So again, the first step is you want to get this independent home energy assessment. The second step is going to be to do what's called a ACA Manual J room by room load calculation, also called a load calc, okay? This is going to tell you how many heat units your house needs and how many cooling units your house needs. Once you get those numbers, then you go shopping for your HVAC equipment. That's the last step, okay? We have a tendency in the Midwest to oversize systems. If you wear, what size shoe do you wear?
8.5.
You wear an 8.5. We're going to put you, Rose, in a 14.
Oh, jeez.
I'm
going to fall on my face.
Just in case. We do the same thing with our HVAC sizing. We give you way more capacity or way more room than you actually need. We don't want to do that. Sizing a piece of HVAC equipment for a house is like putting a foot in a shoe. The shoe needs to fit. It needs to be proper so that it doesn't give us calluses or it doesn't pinch or pull or whatever. So again, the three steps are the home energy assessment, the HVAC load calc, and then talk to your contractors.
Okay, that's really good to know. I know that previously HVAC systems are sized just based on square footage of your house, which of course doesn't consider everything the load calc does. So I guess what I would say here is never take a 1-for-1 replacement for your HVAC system. Always do the load calc.
I agree. And just to go back to my own experience, my house had an 80,000 BTU furnace. So my furnace put out 80 units of heat. The actual need of my house is 21. Okay? So my system is oversized by a factor of 4. That's gargantuan. And when you get oversized equipment, your equipment short cycles, means it turns on and off a lot. That's increased wear and tear, increased maintenance costs. That leads to temperature stratification, different temperatures in different parts of the room, poor indoor air quality. Folks, your indoor air only gets filtered when the system is running. Your system should run all the time on a low speed, right? So you need to get properly sized equipment. I cannot stress this enough.
Definitely. And I also know if you happen to oversize a heat pump, which you should not do, it can lead to moisture issues in your house, especially in the summer.
Right. So what ends up happening here is if you have a glass of iced tea and you're inside in the summer and you take the glass of tea outside and you put it down on the table, what's going to happen is the iced tea is going to sweat, right? And what the glass is doing is it's condensing the water or the humidity out of the air right onto the glass. That's what your AC does in your house. And when the system is too big, what happens is that this is going to be a little bit technical, but it drops the sensible temperature too quickly so that the system turns off before it can begin to suck the moisture out of the air. So we really, really, really do not want to oversize our systems, because then we're going to have cold temperatures in the house, but it's still going to be clammy or it's still going to have high humidity.
Okay, so bottom line here, make sure your system is right sized. And to figure out the right size, do the load test, load calculation. And make sure before you do your HVAC upgrade, you do those other low-hanging fruit upgrades as well to ensure you can have the smallest system possible for your house.
Correct. Also, if you're in a bind where like, shoot, we need to replace this right now, if you do a load calculation, you have one done for you, you can size the equipment to what the future building shell is going to be. So for example, if my walls are completely uninsulated, but I need new HVAC today or tomorrow, I can model the house to say, okay, if I put a bunch of insulation in the walls, that's going to bring my heating load from 40 down to 30. Okay, great. Well, then we're going to size the heat pump for 30,000 BTUs. Great. And then we're going to get to the insulating of the walls in like two weeks. So typically, people's houses get better. They get more air sealed, more insulated over time. They don't get worse. So we can either install the system, then do the building shell upgrades, or do the building shell upgrades and then install the system, as long as we model what the house is.
Okay, awesome. That is really good to know. To close out the episode here, I thought we could leave our listeners with some questions they should ask their contractor when they are ready to replace their HVAC system. Do you have a list of maybe questions to ask or top 3 questions listeners should have in their mind?
Yeah, so I said in one of the ways to be prepared for this is to make sure that you get a load calculation done for your house. And typically contractors are going to come out to the house and they are going to they're going to walk around and make a couple measurements, and then they're going to say, okay, this is the system that we recommend for your house. And you're going to want to ask them, when you're interviewing contractors, what inputs do they take or are they considering to get the most accurate load calculation for the house? If they say, we're just going to eyeball this, or we did a house just like this down the street and we gave them this, that's the wrong answer. Garbage in, garbage out. So you should be taking into consideration the blower door number, which your independent home energy auditor is going to give you, the square footage of the house, the height of each floor, the window areas, the orientation of the house, the shading on each window, the amount of insulation in attics, in exterior walls, in basements. There are so many things that go into an accurate load calculation. So the more that they say, we take into consideration A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like that's awesome. If someone comes in there in 5 minutes and is like, hey, this is what you need, I'd be pumping the brakes and probably contact a couple other people. And if they're not willing to get that information, then you as a homeowner say, know what? I'll take all these measurements, but I want you to use software that can incorporate all this data in there because I want accurate results. And again, garbage in, garbage out. It should not be just based on square footage. That is wrong.
Okay, that's a really great question to ask.
The second question I would encourage them to ask is, what is my duct pressure? So if your heat pump or your furnace is like the heart of your house, the supply ducts are the arteries and the return ducts are the veins. If your ducts are too restrictive, that means you're going to have poor blood flow, or you're going to have poor airflow to each of the rooms. So your system can only move so much air against so much resistance. And if you have high resistance, you're not going to get the airflow. So I'd have them test, what is my duct pressure and what is my system rated to push against. If your system can only push against, 5 units of pressure, but your ducts have 15, heck, man, get the greatest system that you want. You're never going to get the air to where it needs to go, right? And then the last question I'd encourage them to ask is, what is my fresh air target for my house? How much cubic feet per minute of fresh air do I need for this house, given the occupants, the height of the house, the blower door number? And if they can't tell you that, that would be a red flag.
Okay, got it. And I think you have an even bigger list of questions, which I'll link in the show notes. I'll just say to the listeners, don't be afraid or embarrassed to ask these questions. Like Stephen said, this investment is huge for you. This is where you're going to spend a lot of your time, a lot of your life. Make sure it's going to be on par with what you want for comfort, for health, for energy efficiency.
You don't need to have these people in and like sit them down and like grill them with all these questions. Maybe you just check out the website. You pick 3 of these questions or 5 of these questions and just sprinkle them in as you're having this conversation, all right? I mean, you're dealing with another person. This is a team effort to get the best results that you can. Everyone's working for the same goal here. And something I'll say to homeowners who sometimes are concerned about cost, folks, you're doing a heart transplant on your house. This is not this time to be like, this person's $799, but this person's $795. I'm going to go here. Like, whoa. That's not what we're doing here. And you should not expect someone who's coming into your house that's giving you a free quote on an HVAC system to do all this work. You're going to be paying extra for this, and you should, because it takes time and software and training. So take the time, explore your options, get the stuff done, garbage in, garbage out, so that you can get good results. We're paying for results.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're at the end of the episode. Stephen, thank you so much for all of your expertise, your tips, your explanations, your awesome analogies. This has been such a delight, and I feel personally super prepared for when I finally get to invest in a heat pump once I am a homeowner. So thank you for that.
Happy to.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to Sustainable Sun Prairie with your host, Rose Daly. I hope you enjoyed this episode and uncovered something new about sustainability. As always, you can subscribe to our podcast and listen anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and you can listen live on 103.5 FM The Sun, WLSP-LP, and on demand on the Sun Prairie Media Center app. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, as well as our contact info, please visit the show notes. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.